Welcome back to the Cycle Podcast. Today we're going to talk about different conditions and whether they are genetic or environmental. And then we're going to dive in just a little bit to nature versus nurture, our own personal experiences with what we're struggling with, whether that is something that was passed down to us, whether it's something that's environmental, and then kind of process a little bit about our own individual struggles and share some things that we think everybody will relate to. And we hope that you enjoy this episode, and we're excited for the next one. Can't wait to see you and enjoy.
All right, so we're playing a game called Hereditary or Not. Is this something that can be passed down genetically through the generations, or is this formed by nurture? Something that has come into your life based off of life happenings.
Is it genetic or environmental?
I like that name better.
Yeah.
Is it genetic or environmental?
Okay.
Narcissistic personality disorder.
Genetic.
Narcissistic personality disorder. I would say it's environmental.
Environmental. It is environmental.
Interesting.
1 point for Danny and Elijah.
It's about parenting styles and childhood experiences. Okay.
Interesting.
Cool. That makes sense.
That does
Yeah.
make sense. All the Middle Eastern men I've dated were
Narcissist?
yeah.
We talked about birth order before. I wonder if it's also in relation
The
to
first
birth order.
one, the middle one, or the last one.
Yeah.
I would imagine the first one. They're always the hardest on the first
Or
one.
the last one.
The
'Cause
baby?
The babies usually get the most love.
Yeah, they do. Or the middle child gets abandoned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's, interesting.
Interesting. Next.
Eating disorders.
I
Binge
think
eating
that's
or bulimia.
I
This
think
is-
that's environmental.
Genetic.
Especially how your mom.
Genetic.
Yeah, it's how your eating styles. How your
Environmental.
mom teaches. Like, for instance, my mom, like, I was restricted food because I was an overweight child. And so now I developed an unhealthy relationship with food itself.
So it's environmental, not genetic.
Yeah.
That's fascinating because I heard that in World War II, there was a province in the Netherlands that they were, ostracized into concentration camps. And the children of those people that were in the concentration camps struggled with overeating because their parents were so deprived of it while they were
Same with
in
like
the womb.
the Ireland's the potato famine.
Yeah.
Like, that's why Irish people are so overweight. But the eating disorder itself, disordered eating, instead of like actual like weight genetics and all that stuff, that's genetics. But disordered eating, I think, is environmental. It's how you were taught to have a relationship with your food.
Okay. So Kyla
Interesting.
gets 1 point. 1-1-1.
All right, we're all tied up.
Of course, it's about food. I'm gonna get it. Look. Genetic.
Substance use disorder is genetic or
Genes.
environmental.
Genes.
So it's 56.
You just answered the question.
I'll take the point.
Correct.
Correct.
Yes. Trisha Paytas. There's this podcast on TikTok. Well, it's Trisha Paytas, and it's a viral clip that always goes around. And she's like reiterating the question, and the person who's asking the question goes, "Correct," and she's like,
Oh, thank
"Yes,
you.
I got it." Okay, so we're all still at 1. Bipolar disorder, is that genetic or environmental?
Genetic.
Genetic.
Bipolar disorder is genetic. Genetic, okay. 2-2-2.
Thank you.
Empathy, is empathy environmental or genetic?
Environmental.
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 Ooh.
Okay, what's the percentage? 30 to 50%.
Interesting. I guess that kind of makes sense. Is like your mom, like how your mom teaches you empathy and love. Like if they, there's a link between like children, babies, right? If they're not like held often, then they obviously like they can be turned into like serial killers because they weren't held or loved as a child, and that's how they born that fondness of like love. So
100%.
and then serial killers don't have empathy, right? Like they lack empathy and then they're not being
A
held.
sociopath?
Yeah.
Okay, 3-3-3.
Ooh.
Phobias.
Environmental.
Fear of heights.
Genetic.
Genetic.
Ooh, Kyla
Thank
takes
you.
the lead. 4-3-3. Okay, that makes sense. Like does
Like,
it?
what if something happened?
I don't
right?
know. I think that seems genetic because I feel like if there's people in the Amazon, right, they got bit by the fucking spider, and then their children are scared of the spider. Of course, that's like genetically
But that's
passed down.
epigenetics.
Yeah.
I think some things.
Like, my actual phobia of like going outside came from like COVID. Like, that was an environmental impact on me that I had developed. Same with like as a child, I was scared of those what are those things that get into the wood? Termites. Oh my god, and lice. I had like extreme like craziness almost into the psychiatric hospital because I had lice when I was younger. And I had so much hair, and it just kept coming back.
Oh,
So I developed
They-
like
they
a
found a
severe
nice
phobia.
nest.
Yeah, like literally a severe
They don't
phobia.
hop over here.
You know what I mean? Like, and like every day I would be like picking my hair. I'd be like brushing my hair, and that's where it came from. It was
Sheesh.
the stress and trauma that I went through with
Yeah.
that.
Wow.
That's fascinating.
Okay. 433.
College, please.
Genetic.
Genetic.
I'll say environmental because why not?
Genetic.
Thank
yeah.
you.
My family has ADHD, but they also say that ADHD is behavioral because you could be in adverse childhood situations where you constantly have to be
Like on the, yeah,
looking over your left shoulder to
Mhm.
kind of
manage
prepare
everything.
what will happen.
Right.
And for that, that's also genetic. So I feel like it could go both ways.
And it's environmental too.
Yeah. That's what I mean. Environmental.
So it can be,
Or is
like-
it genetic?
I feel like it can be both, especially if you have to grow up a little bit faster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Codependency has to be environmental. That's
Yeah.
like a
Environmental.
attachment style.
Yeah, I would say environmental. Genetics.
Tourette syndrome.
Which I think it's like the issue
Yeah,
is like
that has to-
twitches.
Yeah, I think it's genetic.
Genetic.
It says 50%.
Wow.
50% of Tourette's.
Are both
I wonder how
environmental.
that develops.
I think it's like a nervous system
Yeah.
type of situation because it's like compulsively.
But can't you is Tourette's like where they could like just randomly swear?
Yeah.
Or twitch. Like there's
Mm.
certain like what do they call it? There's certain ticks. That's the word, ticks.
Mhm.
Yes, that they go through, which I think can be both, especially like like ADHD people like pick up on like tisms, or no, I think it's autism, where they like there was something like I would used to walk around and be like saying like random things all day, over and over again, like, ooh, this is not, like I would say that over and over and over again, you know what I mean?
You with the news
like a
trending
tick.
sound on TikTok.
No, I would just be
It all
like,
I
makes
like my
so much sense
suitcase.
now.
You
Yes.
just walk around
my
and say that.
suitcase, yeah, like I
That's
would
Tourette's.
literally walk around. I would just be saying all different kinds of things all the time, just repeatedly, and that's like a tick almost.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can
TikTok
see that.
sounds leading to Tourette's. All right, last
Maybe.
one. What do we got? OCD.
I think it's 50-50.
OCD, I think it's also both.
Genetic.
Survey says
45 to 65%.
Ooh, all right. It's like right in the middle.
yeah, happy medium.
I feel like some people are like more type A.
I don't know who won that one. I think Kyla might have.
Yeah, I think
honestly.
I have one more than I know is. I think it's a good segue question.
Okay.
Schizophrenia.
Genetic.
Schizophrenia is both.
Schizophrenia is like 85% genetic. You're predisposed to schizophrenia.
Mhm.
It runs in the family.
Same with bipolar disorder.
Mm.
And bipolar disorder, schizophrenia can overlap with each other.
Comorbid.
Fascinating.
Mhm.
Interesting. So, what are genes? What does that even mean?
Well, they're pants that you wear.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about the Demi Lovato. There's like a Vine or maybe it's a TikTok. What'd you learn today? And they were in the backseat. They were like, jeans. Can you pull that up really fast? It's like actually really funny.
Have you seen that one where she's like, "What's your favorite dish?" She goes,
A mug.
"Probably
Probably why.
a mug." She goes, the interviewer goes, "What's your favorite dish?" And she
Yeah.
goes, "Probably a mug."
What? I like China.
So kids, what we learn at school today?
In health association, we learn about inherited genes and stuff.
Okay, that's good. Like hand-me-down
like hand-me-down clothing.
You still confused on that?
No, I get it.
I think it's hysterical.
Cool. So genes are segments of DNA that act as instructions for building proteins, the molecules that keep our bodies functioning. Fascinating. Okay. So
already
essentially,
asleep.
the instructions for building proteins. Interesting. Okay. So
Is that why I've got to eat more protein throughout the day?
Different type of protein.
Different
I
type
think
of
it's a
protein.
different type of protein. It's your DNA, essentially segments of your DNA that give your body instructions on how to essentially manifest in reality. Interestingly.
Same DNA.
Okay. Every cell in your body carries the same DNA, but not every gene is turned on
Oh, that
in
makes
every
sense.
cell. So I think that this is what we're kind of alluding to with the game, where if it can be both, like someone can be predisposed for schizophrenia, for example, but their behavior and their health, etc., may contribute to them not turning on that gene,
Said genes.
and then they don't get it.
Like addiction too.
Mm.
I think addiction is really strong in that.
Yeah.
Because you could be predisposed, right? Like heroin's one of the most addicting
Yeah.
substances.
Right.
Let's say nobody has a history of heroin. No,
Mhm.
anybody in their family has any addiction. But if they're predisposed to heroin, like an actual heroin, and they start using it, they can build that addiction because they become physically dependent
Like a
upon
crack baby?
not just a crack baby, the crack baby itself too, but like someone that is, there's no addiction in the family, right?
Yeah.
So, and then Mark's running along and he gets into some trouble and Mark finds heroin, you know, and Mark starts using heroin. But they're like, how has this happened? It's because it's addicting substances
Right.
itself, and that can start to really change things in your brain.
Turn it on, turn it off.
Right.
What's interesting that I heard working in substance abuse recovery and then also in my family, like my dad had really bad alcoholism. My mom was like, do not pick up a drink. And
Yeah.
she saw her brother go through addiction as well. She's like, it's on both sides. You're genetically screwed.
Yep.
And I got into club promoting and she's like,
You're
lost
done.
him.
Yep.
and I was never a person who was like, I can't stop the drinking or doing
Yeah.
something like weed for a
Lucky.
little bit, but like early days in college. But I don't know, it never hit me. But they say that it skips a gene.
generation. Yeah.
A gene a generation.
That's what
Yeah.
happens. So my grandma told me the exact same thing. I remember I got my tonsils taken out and they had given me opiates and I drank the entire liquid opiate bottle. And she was like, I remember turning around
Glug,
the
glug,
kitchen
glug,
with the
glug,
empty
glug.
bottle and
2
she was
shots.
like, you do understand that alcoholism runs in our family. And I'm like, it's not alcohol. Like, what are you talking about? She was like, you're fucked. You know what I mean? She just holding the empty bottle. And I didn't know. And my mom has never had a problem.
Mm.
Never has had a problem with substances. But her father did, and my grandmother did. They both had severe problems. Skipped my mom, went straight to me.
All
So
right.
it really did skip a generation. And
So don't procreate.
well, I mean, I think if
her children will be fine.
I think
her grandchildren.
unless I
Oh,
unless I have,
yeah.
unless I
okay.
marry somebody that is an addict, they will definitely be predisposed, like
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
somebody.
I'm afraid for my next gen.
Oh, me
What-
too.
What about you? Do you have any addiction in your family?
No addiction, thankfully.
That's
I'm
great.
trying to think. I can't recall one person in my entire immediate or extended family. Actually, no, one. My aunt. My aunt suffered with addiction, unfortunately.
Addicted to what?
She was addicted to all sorts of things, meth and heroin
Whoa.
and all the, yeah, just my aunt. But thankfully, I mean, no one else. And I think I may have subtly inherited some addiction, to nicotine per se. But thankfully, nothing
Rips vape.
too crazy,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lucky.
Well, some people have we talked about the schizophrenic gene. You talked about your mother having schizophrenia.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever have fears of like schizophrenia being genetic / coming up in your own experience / people around you, i.e. your brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I think not even schizophrenia specifically, just mental health in general, because my father suffered with depression, my mother had bipolar and schizoaffective disorder, and there was just a multitude of different mental health ailments that my immediate and extended family suffered with. And I always prided myself growing up that I was the one sibling who never had a explicit diagnosis of any mental health issue, but
The
I
golden
think,
child.
yeah, but I think over the past 3 or 4 years that the universe has humbled me, and although I haven't been explicitly diagnosed with any mental health issues, I feel like I've traversed some treacherous waters, if you will, and with my mental well-being, and I think a lot of that could be due to my inheritance of certain genes.
Yeah, I think people have different, like a different bandwidth when it comes to mental health. I think that you kind of showed me that, where like sometimes you'll be like really, really good, but if you like will slip, like there will be like we're slipping out. And I didn't think it was genetic until like working here in this space, and I was like, no, there's something genetic here for sure. And there's a depression gene that actually turns on and turns off when we're talking about genes here. They connect it to like a serotonin transporter gene. There's like a brain derived neurotropic factor, which is a gene that plays a role in like brain cell growth. And they say a GATA1 gene as well. This controls expression of other genes and like is involved in brain development and function as well. They haven't tracked it to one specific gene to depression, but it is like a genetic disorder. They've tracked it to a certain point.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Like, and I think a lot of it comes down to your lifestyle and behavioral patterns in terms of which ones get turned on, you know, because like Kyla mentioned, even if someone has, you know, two addicted parents or grandparents and they have the gene for addiction but they don't dabble, they're obviously not going to be. But whereas if they even try it once, they're so susceptible that maybe they immediately slide down the hill, you know what I mean?
That's the scary part with addiction.
Yeah,
Because it doesn't have to be drugs.
right.
It does not have to be like, it can be food, shopping. It could be a multiple, like gym, you know what I mean? Like severely, like exercising, over exercising. There's an obsessive compulsive component to it. And both addiction, because it is something, doing something over and over and over again, like, you know, getting what you want or need. And it's almost like, I question if it is obsessive compulsive disorder because I'm routinely like doing it over and over again, thinking that it's fixing something.
Yeah.
Like obsessive compulsive disorder.
Yeah.
Like there's solution in it.
Yeah.
Continue. Yeah, and it's fascinating because I think when it comes to like nature versus nurture, like then your your nature is more like your genes, essentially what you inherit, right? What's passed down along, versus nurture, which is what is referred to as like epigenetics, essentially, which is what genes actually end up manifesting themselves due to your lifestyle choices, right? So even as you mentioned, if you have an addictive gene, but you don't partake in any illicit substances, maybe that ends up manifesting itself through something like shopping, right? Or the gym or whatever it may be. So it's fascinating that you have the ability within your own control to turn on and turn off certain genes based off of things like your diet, as well as, you know, what sort of lifestyle activities you partake in, substances,
which ones are expressed and which ones aren't.
Yeah.
How your body naturally does that.
Yeah.
Even when you look at siblings, like why are some siblings different than others when it's like a very similar environment? Obviously, like you have birth order and there's like a differencing of experiences, but it's pretty crazy to see, at least even myself with my siblings, like everyone's so different. Some people process and are more emotionally intelligent. Other ones are more like intelligent when it comes to like knowledge-based stuff. So like how the hell does that work? It's not how you're raised, you know?
I mean, it can be.
Yeah.
I have just a point to that. Like all three of just my siblings on my mom's side, all very different. Yes, they had a different father, but because they were raised, like my mom was younger when she had me. So I got a different experience of my mom versus than my two younger siblings. She was more mature. She had some things, you know, better life, like there was stability there compared to like what I experienced. There wasn't much stability, you know?
Yeah. And how much of that success is nurture versus nature. I think I realized at a young age, like some of these things were either predisposed or they were cast on to me, like type A personality or like being able to be socially intelligent, which I think is more nurture rather than nature. But
I'm about to say, meeting your mom, she's sharp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got it from mama for sure. Yeah. But I'm like, you almost have, you're predisposed to certain things, whether it's genetic or whether it's environmental. How do you like take these pieces and really start to be successful with the cards that
Dealt
you
to you.
have? You know what I mean? Because whether it was given to you at birth or whether it was given to you due to like your environment that you were raised in, you then have a place in a space to be able to be like, all right, how do I want to best use these? Or like if it is like an obsessive mentality, can I obsess about something that's good or healthy
Yeah.
that could push you further rather than like finding maybe negative slash like detrimental ways of expressing these things, i.e. like alcohol or drugs or cocaine or whatever it may be.
Yeah, you can essentially like leverage your inclinations that are genetically passed down, like your coding of your body and your mind, to as a superpower opposed to like a super weapon, if you will, right? And it's about having that conscious distinction in real time, like having the awareness to be like, okay, this is coming up. How can I actually move this in a direction that's ultimately going to benefit myself instead of it feed an immediate pleasure-seeking response, you know?
Yeah, 100%. Some days are harder than others.
Yeah. Do you have any tips and tricks? Kyla, how did you get out of addiction? Like, how were you able to kind of turn that gene down, if you will, and leverage it towards, you know, maybe it's cleaning and maybe it's a little OCD sometimes, but like, or whatever it may be, but how did you make that transition?
For me, it took getting out of that environment, like literally removing myself out of the environment that I was in, like using in. The first time that I attempted to get sober, I literally went across the country. I had to get out of the state, out of the city, around those different people that I was using with, out of the place I was using with, which is a risk, right? It's still scary.
Did you have like a place, like a designated using space?
Yeah, it was my little apartment. Or
Yeah.
like when I became homeless, it was my car,
Yeah.
you know?
Nice.
So like I had to eventually, it wasn't by my choice. Like they put me in the hospital, you know?
Yeah.
And like I went. But with that, once you remove yourself from the area, the people, the places, the things that you associate yourself using with, or just addictive things,
Yeah.
you have a better chance of recovering,
sure.
like at least 70%. Yes, of course, you can go anywhere and get sober. I could have stayed there, but it would make it 10 times more harder.
Because of all the pattern triggers.
Exactly.
Like, oh, there's the neighborhood 7-Eleven. I always used to go to
Pick up,
Jimmy
yes.
and pick up from.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And in of itself, addiction becomes a routine. And this is what I've learned. It wasn't that I had been addicted to the substance, right? It was the routine and ritual of getting the syringe ready, getting the spoon out, tying up my arm. Like that became addicting in of itself. Watching the blood draw, like that became a very addicting and powerful thing. And I could just remember like having dreams about it, just that itself. So once I removed myself from that, I had a 70% chance of, you know, getting better. That's why they say go to
Get the
rehab out of
hell
state,
out.
get out of your area. But then again, you can find drugs everywhere,
It's
which
fascinating.
led me there.
And like you mentioned, when you're like going up to the actual use of the substance, your body is actually releasing like a significant amount of dopamine up until you actually using it. Right? And it's just fascinating how like you're pretty much using your internal bank, if you will, of dopamine during that process. And then obviously the substance will shoot that through the roof.
Right.
But it's like if you are able to get that internal bank to work properly without needing the substance to shoot it through the roof, then that also, I'd imagine, contributes to being able to transition to sobriety. So I'm curious, you mentioned a lot of external factors, right? Changing your environment, moving states, what have you. What sort of internal factors did you implement to get past addiction? Were there any mantras or like affirmations or like breath work or like meditation, anything like that that helped you get past that?
Obviously in rehab, there's a bunch of different therapies that they like offer to you.
Yeah.
And it got to a point where I was just so young. I think when I first tried to get sober, where I felt like I was lost because that was my identity, was addiction.
Yeah.
And obviously the rooms, and when I say the rooms, this 12-step community really helped me, like picked me up and like
Community.
Yeah, it was a community essentially. And my mantra, I think, when I early on in sobriety, when I was young, at like 19, 20, when I first got it or tried to get it, was what can I do today that would make like my future self would thank me for.
Mm.
I would say that every single day.
That's
like,
such
what
a
can
good
I
hack.
do?
Yeah.
Like I could hit my pillow just sober that day. Like it was just literally taking it one day at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And then what I noticed with me and like reasons why I relapse is because letting go of like self-control, like acceptance and control, right? Like if I don't have control in the situation, it really fucks with me on the inside, and relationships, jobs, employers. And most of the time I've relapsed because I've lost a job, because I've made that my identity. I now became addicted to the job, and I had to learn really early on in my early 20s that it's okay.
Yeah.
Another job will come. But it did take
Totally.
me out. It did make me relapse. And then the other thing that really helped me around this time, this like actual length
Which
of
was
sobriety,
when?
I would say
How long have you been sober for?
I just I'm going over 2 years now.
Congratulations.
Thank you
That's
very
huge.
much.
Wow.
Yeah, it would
So-
have been December.
What were you saying? That was what contributed to this time?
I think this time it was just a realization of like, number one, I'm getting older. I don't want to keep doing this when I was 45. You know, and God forbid be the lady that's 45 and
Yeah.
I've seen those women. And it got to a point where I had no insurance. I was in my reality, I hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
True. I thought I had before, but I was able to dig deeper to this
Wow.
rock bottom. And it was where I was sitting around a bunch of different people that were like out of the county jails or like prison
Yeah.
and a hardcore women's rehab. And to be like, but I'm college educated. But I'm, you know,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
but it's not, it doesn't matter.
For sure.
Yeah,
It
you're trying to
literally
like
didn't
reinforce your identity. You're like scraping through the walls. You're like, fuck,
shouldn't
I'm
be
just
here.
trying to hold into like my identity of being a college educated, sophisticated contributor to society. Why am I?
Yeah. And like, I literally
Fuck.
told myself like, I should not be here, but I did need to be there. I really, truly
Gotta
had
hit
to.
rock bottom.
So that's what I needed.
Yeah.
And I think after that, it was just when I finally got out, it was okay. No playing around this time. I had a job within a week after I got out.
Nice.
I applied all the tools that they had, kept in contact with my sponsor. Shout out Rose. Like I literally
Shout
just
Rose.
did all the things that they told me to do. Whether that was pick up the phone, call somebody, and be like, "Hey, I'm really struggling right now."
Bring it in, gang. I think that brings to the point of nurture. You could nurture a new environment that allows you to sustain healthy habits.
Mm-hmm.
And addicts are really good at that too.
And ultimately, you were able to turn the gene back off in some capacity, right? Or if it is manifesting now, it maybe is with
course.
work, right? Or with cleaning or OCD, vaping, right? But these things that aren't as detrimental, and if anything, some of them propel you forward, right? And it's like, how do you leverage that internal energy that your God-given genetics your parents gave you, and how do you leverage it to build momentum for a positive life that you ultimately want to live, right?
Instead of a defect, using it to my advantage.
Yeah.
Essentially.
And I think one thing that you mentioned that's super important that I think a lot of people can benefit from is project yourself into the future, even if it's tomorrow, right? Or next week, right? Maybe you don't have the capacity to see what your life looks like in 5 or 10 years, but what would that version of yourself thank you for doing today?
Right.
Right. And that's a huge, like, what would me tomorrow thank me for doing today? Like, ask yourself that question and do that and do it. Just and ask it, maybe even write it down, the answer, and do it every damn day. And your life will progress. It's a matter of time, right?
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah, I think also setting yourself up for an environment that is different too. So like putting yourself out there, which is really difficult.
Which is super uncomfortable.
Disgusting.
So, I mean, and that's what keeps people in their addiction.
Yeah.
Is a comfort zone, and they don't want to like change anything because they know it's be uncomfortable to withdraw.
Mm-hmm.
They don't. It's the fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
It's all these different factors, but at some point, it's worth the risk.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's
so
not even
worth
just
it.
addiction. It's any type of anxiety,
Yes.
depression,
Right.
OCD,
Yeah.
really bad OCD, eating disorders.
Yes.
For sure. And to that point, I've kind of diven through a wormhole, rabbit hole rather, as of late on like my own genetic predisposition. I did this really comprehensive test and I found out there's this really trendy gene right now. It's called the MTHFR gene, also known as the motherfucker gene.
Tell
right?
me about that MFR gene.
Yeah, so the
Like we're
motherfucker
spelling out
gene,
meth.
it's called the MTHFR gene, right? And anywhere from 44 to 60% of the world's population has this gene.
Oh,
Okay.
God.
This gene, essentially what it does is it reduces your ability to metabolize, which means to process folic acid, which at first glance, you're like, what the fuck's folic acid? It doesn't really matter.
Supplement.
Folic acid is the most prominent nutrient in all of our food. Folic acid is sprayed on all the crops. Everything that's fortified or enriched has folic acid, everything from pasta to cereal, etc., right? Yeah. And so what they're discovering is that because such a significant portion of the population has this gene called the MTHFR gene, they're unable to process this folic acid into folate, right? Which is what your body needs in order to not be depressed, in order to decrease inflammation, right? So when I did these tests, my doctor noticed that I had a significant elevated amount of homocysteine, which is essentially inflammation in your body.
Gay?
Homocysteine.
Wrong gene.
Wrong gene.
We're talking crop top.
This is a homocysteine gene, which is inflammation. And he's like, you probably have the MTHFR gene because your body is really inflamed right now and you're not able to methylate the folic acid, pretty much meaning turning it into a nutrient that your body can absorb, right? So it was really fascinating. And after just a day or two of taking the supplement, the methylated B vitamin, which I recommend to anyone who's kind of suffering with some of these ailments, because like whether it be brain fog or depression, etc., because your body needs it to survive. And if you're not able to process it due to this gene, like that could be low-hanging fruit to increase your experience and your livelihood, like dramatically.
Yeah.
So what, if you don't mind me asking, what did they tell you, like, to, because I mean, obviously there's folic acid supplements, right?
Yeah.
But your body's not, even if you were to take a ton of folic acid, your body wouldn't be able to basically change that into what it needs, correct?
Yeah. So in like a dietary way, like staying away from like gluten, obviously, wheat, grain, anything that's fortified or enriched, even like rice, etc. And then leaning more towards things like spinach or kale that have folate naturally, because folic acid is essentially just the synthetic version of folate, right? So get the actual real version of it through spinach and kale and berries, etc., meats. And then he also recommended that I take this methylated multivitamin, which again I think can be such a big win for people that are struggling with just kind of like brain fog or like attention deficit even, because the cognitive effects of this particular gene that's really, like I said, it's picking up by storm. A lot of people have it. It are immense. So yeah, it's interesting.
That is very
Yeah,
interesting.
I worked at a vitamin shop for a little bit, and they had spray vitamins, and that was like one of the most important vitamins that they said not even to push, but like most people just don't know about it. It's like the folic acid.
Yeah, exactly. And there's this really kind of trendy health hacker dude, Gary Brecka, is kind of really getting this message out there because he's, helped many patients, and he notices that, again, this is prevalent in about 50% of the population. And so could be a really big win for someone who's listening.
Big win. Tell me more about this test. What was the test all about? What other insights did you get?
Yeah, on this test result, it was crazy. Kyla, you're not going to believe this. I had 360 times the normal amount of E. coli in my gut.
Isn't that good though?
E. coli.
Oh no, E. coli is bad.
E. coli is like
I thought a Ricola.
Yeah, I did too. I was like E. coli.
Yeah,
like E. coli, like that you would get from like
it's transmitted through feces actually.
Yeah.
So like eating like.
Are you into eating a little bit of booty hole or something?
I mean, a little booty hole never hurt nobody until it hurt me.
360.
No, I'm just kidding. It was actually right after I went to a trip to Tulum. I was there for like a month. This was years ago, right? And I've had this pain in my stomach and all these symptoms for years. And I just barely got these test results back. And they're like, dude, you have E. coli.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It's not like contagious or anything.
Of course
but
it's
it's
not,
like,
but it's still.
But it's like, dude, I've literally been like dealing with this weight on my shoulders. Like sometimes you'd be like, oh, a little depressy Danny. It's like, dude, I'm like, I have fucking E. coli. I'm just like,
E. coli.
Low energy, fatigue, like all sorts of like gut symptoms.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's like really alleviating that I found it out, but then also it's like I have fucking E. coli, so just like trying to get to the bottom of that. But it's fascinating. I think that the physiological component of people's mental health is not taken into consideration as much as it should be, quite frankly. You know what I mean? I think that oftentimes SSRIs, like if I had gone and saw a psychiatrist, like likelihood of me being prescribed a medication would be quite high. Quite frankly, like I said before, I haven't been explicitly diagnosed with anything, but I would have been definitely with depression. But like I said, even after just this happened a couple of days ago and making some small tweaks, I feel augmentation in my energy, which is great, but still a little scary.
These tests, what other things did we derive from the test? Or how is it, I guess, take a step back. How is your mental health now after seeing there was this big of E. coli in your body?
I was initially like really quite frazzled, and I was like, damn, I have fucking E. coli. I didn't even know what it was. Quite frankly, I heard it on like E. coli outbreaks. You know what I mean? Like on the news. It's like the broccoli has been infected.
E. coli.
But I must have gotten it like when I was on this trip years ago, like I said, and I haven't been to a doctor for a long time. And it's just been such a battle with my health physically and mentally. And being able to identify it was a big relief. But then also I'm like, I want to solve it ASAP. So then it created some anxiety too.
You said you were having symptoms though. What kind of?
Like,
you said your stomach was hurting?
Yeah, my stomach has like been in a lot of pain for the past few years, and then depression and anxiety has shortly ensued thereafter. So I haven't really been that open about it, especially with like the team and everything. But yeah, been super depressed and like in pain for like a few years since I started this company, honestly.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was a big win to get the issue identified, and now I'm solving it, and I'm feeling much better.
And you hadn't seen a doctor that entire time?
Yeah. I mean, I did. I went to multiple, like I went to UCLA. I did a CAT scan, right? But the thing is, Western medicine, oftentimes, they'll, just take you through the traditional testing routes. Like I said, did a CAT scan. I did a bunch of like urological tests, but I'd never done this test from like a naturopathic doctor to be able to identify the pathogens in my gut. And once I did, I was able to find that out. And then a bunch of other things too, like the MTHFR gene that presented itself. So now I have like a regimen and routine that I'm going to be following. And yeah, I'm excited to transition out of that state of dis-ease, if you will, and
out of E. coli.
Into health. Yeah, out of E. coli and out of, that homocysteine inflammation, a lot of like neurological inflammation as well came up on the tests. So, yeah.
Glad you know now.
Now I know. Yeah, but I feel like I'm going to be able to get back to myself and like transition into a new version, which is exciting, honestly.
100%.
Yeah,
Stay away from him. Get in your bubble, bro. Yeah, I think that with your case, a lot of it, because we talked about this a lot for the past like 3 years, on and off.
Yeah, I would always tell Elijah, like, dude, my stomach's hurting, like my abdomen, I don't know what the hell's wrong.
Oh my
like,
God.
Yeah, like all the time. Like we went to Burning Man and it was like really bad. Like I can't even tell you some of the symptoms that I had.
Doesn't like the desert.
Yeah, like, and I think it was what I was eating too, I was eating like Top Ramen or whatever, which is just full of that folic acid, so it was that in conjunction with E. coli. And I was just having like really bad symptoms where I was like, dude, do I have cancer? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
on WebMD.
Yeah, exactly. Like
late at night.
Like, how the hell do I figure out what's going on, And interestingly, one of our clients that did test kits, Energy for Life, you probably heard about at some point, they gave me this test kit for free, and I did it, and
Would you have to do, prick your finger?
No, I did a lot of different things. I did like a hormone test.
Wow.
So it was like a urine test. I had to like do it at like 5 different times of the day to test my cortisol levels throughout the day.
Wow.
My cortisol is really high. I have adrenal fatigue according to this test. And then I did a fecal test, which is where I found the E. coli and some other not so good pathogens.
So you had to shit in a petri dish?
I had to shit in a petri dish. It was actually like one of those cartons like that you get at the fair that hold your fries. Yeah.
Yummy.
Super yummy. And then I did a blood test as well. I have really good cholesterol levels, which is good. There was some highlights for sure, but
yeah,
a lot of
healthy. I think we had some back and forth throughout this past week on.
And quite frankly, since we've met about this, because I think that like a part of it is placebo too. And I think I definitely, when there's something wrong that I know is wrong internally and I'm like, I don't know what this is, then I have a tendency to be like, okay, there's uncertainty there and there's also a problem.
You die.
it's a double,
You
know,
think
I'm
you're
like,
dying.
yeah, I'm on my way to death for sure. And quite frankly, I was, right? If you have E. coli for like, a decade, like chances are you're going to die,
But Danny, I think you're like one of the healthiest
Exactly.
person
And
I
that's the
know.
frustrating part is like,
Yeah.
I'm doing so much yoga. My diet is on point. Sure, I'll hit the vape or do some nicotine now and again, but it's like that shouldn't justify my
Wonder how
internal
much E.
state, which
coli
is
I
like,
have.
I was walking around at like a 3 out of 10 every day. You know what I mean?
Oh, wow.
I have been 3, 4 out of 10 on a good day. Everything's going really well. Maybe I'm a 6, 7, but there were certain emotions over the past few years that I was locked out of. Like I couldn't feel certain, like
Damn.
I couldn't feel like a sense of deep joy because I had this uncertain issue internally that I didn't know what it was.
Damn.
It was
Wow.
crazy. Yeah, it's been a
That
battle.
is a battle. I'm about to say that is a battle.
Yeah.
I'm winded just hearing you talk about it.
What?
I'm winded just hearing you talk about it.
Dude, it's been chaos. And so that's why I'm really grateful that we're in this industry because we're helping people ultimately like with these issues. And like I said, I've been depressed and anxious, like not clinically diagnosed, but 100% like suicidal,
Oh my God.
because of the reasons that I've mentioned, in addition to other, external factors in my life. And I think getting into alignment now and getting my health on check is going to be such a beautiful horizon for me to transition into. And I've learned so much too. I think this same goes for you, Kyla, because you've been through everything that you've been through. You have this capacity to empathize with people that maybe are not as coherent or competent, and you don't know, they might not know why. And you're like, this is maybe not even their own fault. And you have a deeper sense of empathy for people. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that brings the question, the nurture versus the nature, right?
Yeah.
Or the how much of this, because you would come to me with these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I would try to do my best to sit in those emotions, be like, hey, I'm painful. And my instinct is to be like, okay, these are very real, validate those, but also like, can we start to look at all of the things that we have really healthy, right? Or can we start to like shift basically our mindset? And I think at times that was a little bit difficult for you.
Yeah.
And as a friend, it's like, well, how do you support someone like that? You know,
Right.
that comes up. Do you just sit and be like,
That's
you're
tough,
close
man.
to death?
Agree
Honestly,
with them.
End it all.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
you're shit out of luck. Or you just be like, listen, like, absolutely, but like, you could do handstands. Like, you still have your 2 legs, you still have your 2 arms,
Exactly.
you have your body.
You got a Tesla.
Right. Like, there's all these things that we could look at and be like really grateful for inherently. But also, if you feel so much disarray or like you just don't feel like yourself, it's obviously hard to do that.
Yeah.
I want
It
to
feels impossible,
That.
you
It
know?
does. When like flipping the thinking is actually a cognitive behavioral therapy skill.
Yeah.
And it took me years, honestly, years to get out of that like fortune telling, thinking, jumping to an emotion immediately, or mind control, or just assuming things. I still do it today. But I've gotten better at it.
Yeah.
So when I get into these mindsets, like I ate the Fleming. This is hysterical. I ate the Flemings. I had Flemings for my birthday, right?
Happy birthday.
Thank you. And I got a steak. I couldn't finish it. Just had the gastric sleeve. I couldn't eat this
Yeah.
full 6-ounce steak. I had like 3 bites of it and I was full. So I brought it home to eat it. And I didn't have room in my fridge because I have a mini freeze, like a fridge.
Yeah.
So I left it out for 24 hours and I reheated it, started eating it. And I was like, can I still eat steak that's been left out? Because bacteria starts to grow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'm in a full-blown panic. This is last night. I'm in a full-blown panic that I think I'm going to get food poisoning.
E. coli.
E. coli or like staph, whatever bacteria it is. But that's where my head goes, right? And I had to think, okay, well, if it happens, it happens. You know what I mean? Like acceptance is like the answer to all my problems today. That's actually in the big book. It's on page 417.
Yeah.
Acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. And so I literally have had to flip the thinking, like be grateful. I can walk, I can hear, I'm not blind, not deaf, I don't have seizures, I'm not XYZ, you don't have Parkinson's, like there's so many different things that, okay, you got E. coli, but thank God you don't have testicular cancer.
Yeah.
You have your balls.
That's
you know
true.
what I mean? So like there's like little things that it's just so difficult sometimes
When
because
you're
you
in the
get
thick of it.
stuck in it and you're like, how can I flip my thinking? Challenge the thought. Like, am I really dying from cancer? Or do I need to go get some testing to see how I can get this E. coli gone? You know, like there's got to be a solution in the problem. It's so difficult. Trust me, I know it's so difficult, especially for someone like me that's like black and white thinking. Nope, there's no gray in it. But there always is gray in it because you don't know. It's so difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been immensely difficult.
And that was taught to me. Like that
Yeah.
was a nurturing thing.
And it's like paving a path over and over again because
Mm-hmm.
even you got the news, I mean, very recently, it's been 24, 48 hours. And the person that you were on Monday versus like what I've been seeing over the past 24, I mean, you're processing through this news, which is a lot in itself, but you were the same exact person that you were 2 days ago that you are today. But the news in itself like leads to this like
Distorted thinking.
and delusion, but like negative delusion that like could easily circumvent and to put you in a way worse spot than you actually are. And how do you get out of that negative thinking? Or just like I do it by reframing and be like, for every one negative thought that I think that the E. coli is going to take over my whole body, at least I lived this long. I'm going to live till tomorrow and I'm going to leave a good legacy. Or like just because they say for one negative thought, you have to have three reinforcing positive thoughts.
Yeah.
So what are you doing?
I mean, now I'm just doing the protocol, you know. I'm like, and I'm noticing changes like, you know, really quickly. But yeah, I think that a lot of it is like your thought patterns for sure. I've never been in a state in my entire life besides this last 3 years, where I've felt like I can't motivate myself or like think my way or like feel my way to positivity. Does that make sense? It's almost like the resources are not there to like extract the positive thought, right? Like the proteins, if you will, are just like not in my body to be able to be like, oh yeah, it's just like complete
It's difficult.
dismay, like a vacuum, you know, of just like my energy is like being sucked out of me. You know
that's
what I mean?
that's why they have therapists to do it for you, because you can't. When I started doing it, they were like, challenge the thought. And I was like, what are you talking about? How do I challenge this negative thought?
Yeah.
Like I can't, like that's all I'm thinking about. It took, and this is again, they use this in everyday therapy, like emotional regulation and CBT is like literally challenging the thought and flipping it. Like this is a negative thing that happened. Well, like identify how you can flip that. Like I told you, it's very difficult, especially someone like you and I who really struggle with this. It's very, very difficult, but that's why you've got to ask people around you to how can I like change this or flip this? Because if you can't do it yourself, someone else in a different perspective will be able to do it. So you've literally, that's why you have therapists, to ask them to help you in these situations, whether it be your friend, your mom, your, you know, whoever, your sister, someone, be like, hey, I'm really struggling with this. How can you find something in this? Or even a therapist that you don't know, because that's the best way to start doing it.
Yeah. But I mean, obviously people with therapists and that are taking medication still kill themselves, right? So I think ultimately what I've learned throughout this process is that like despite someone having support, right, they could be the most supported person ever, like through therapy, family, friends, etc. Like if they internally do not have the capacity to see it themselves, they will not see it, right? And so that's where I'm like, okay, like we have to be able to address the root issues of someone's ailments and then give them at least the building blocks to build a new future.
But you got to reach out first. Like that's where people, even if they have the support, like we know people who kill themselves start to isolate.
It's isolation.
It's isolation. That's the key thing to anybody that's killed themselves. Yes, they may have their parents to support, but they failed to reach out a hand and say, hey, I feel like killing myself, or hey, I'm struggling with this. That's where the key part is in depression and suicide. It's always isolation.
Yeah. It's that nurture versus nature.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. So yeah, I've learned a lot about the genes and how I'm going to heal myself.
That's good. You're on your path, right? Like that's all that matters. You're on your path right now. You've now identified it, but now it's like to reach out to support, right?
Yeah.
And to hear what other people have to say, because I think a lot of people look to you to be like one of the healthiest people that they know.
Yeah.
Genuinely. And although you may not feel it inside, like people literally look at you as that person.
Yeah. And the reality is I'm one of the most unhealthy people, like, right?
No.
Why are you thinking? Because of E.
It's
coli?
it's not.
I'm saying just in
but-
terms of just take my test result numbers for what they are. Like this is where I think
But
we
I
still
think
butt
that's-
heads is like you have to address the E. coli, otherwise you're not
Right.
going to be able
Of
to
course.
fucking
For sure.
feel better.
For sure.
Right?
Of course, yeah, of course. But you're not unhealthy just because you have
Right.
E. coli in your stomach.
It's not but, it's and.
Look at the fat that's on my body, right? I don't have diabetes. I
Yeah.
don't have heart disease.
It's true.
I don't have a heart attack.
Yeah.
But I still am unhealthy, right? But
And
I
mentally
still
and
have-
emotionally, one of the fittest people that I know.
Right.
Well, it depends on the day, but
Right.
just
Of
kidding.
I mean, that's reality.
Yeah, everyone has like different, like it's not but, it's and. You
Yes.
have you are like, your body percentile is probably one of the lowest
Fat,
percentage.
Yeah.
You have the ability to do fucking handstands and backflips that
If
like,
I do that, I'm breaking an arm.
Yeah, for
My
sure.
body,
There's
yeah.
there's
Oh
a
my-
lot of healthy components.
but you
I think
also
the most
have this thing
important
in your
ones
body.
for me are my internal ones, like, you know, and I think
Your heart, your lungs, your body,
yeah,
your stomach.
exactly.
Yeah, of
and that's
course.
where I'm like, damn, I'm unhealthy in those
But
capacities.
listen to this. This is the thing is I always want you to comparison is always what puts me in check. Because like we could take my blood work and your blood work and like put it together and maybe you have more E. coli than I do. Who knows? But
You
I've
got the gold star there.
gold star on the E. coli. I've got hepatitis C, right? From
Damn.
shooting dope. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
My liver, I cleared it on my own because my liver's that healthy.
Nice.
And I was able to do that. But I'm still susceptible now to cirrhosis, liver failure, just because I have the antibodies in my body, right? I will still always test positive. But if I drink myself to death, if I do things in your liver, it's the most important functioning thing in your body,
Mm.
right? If I do any of those things, I am now at susceptible and risk. I still fight with it, right? I can't pass it on. I can't do any of that.
Yeah,
But it's still something that's there. Same with E. coli.
for sure.
You can still treat it, cure it better, but it's not going to change anything. It's not going to do anything.
Yeah.
It's still there. You just got to treat it. That's it.
Yeah, I got to treat it. That's it. That's literally it. Yeah, so I'm excited to do that and, you know, just start feeling better, honestly. But yeah.
Did they say to cut out gluten?
Yeah, gluten for sure.
You know what is gluten free? Oreos.
Oh,
You
interesting.
should have an Oreo.
I'm okay on the Oreo.
I'm just trying to think, like, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
because there's a lot of people who have, like, the gluten is a big thing.
Yeah,
Like, it became, people have developed gluten allergies
yeah.
because of the amount of gluten that we have in our food.
I
Like the
yeah, I
pasta,
agree.
the rice,
If I have like a lot
everything.
of gluten, it's
So
no
much
good.
gluten.
Yeah.
I think there's the idea of like being good and then being like great, but realizing that not focusing on the 20% margin that will make you great if it's not like positive or influencing you, but being able to look at it and be like, well, I'm 65% good. And I'm choosing to take steps and strides.
Yeah.
Do you think-
Classic.
It's like what percentage do you subjectively attribute to yourself? You know what I mean? Because it is so subjective. But obviously, the higher you can be good, the better, right? And I think there is a variability there in terms of just like your thoughts and what you think, right? But ultimately, there is also like the matter of fact of where you're at, right, in terms of your
Yeah.
health too.
Do you
But-
think that this was passed on to you?
No, I think like I said, I got it like a few years back.
Like when you're traveling?
Yeah, before
Like in
right before
India?
I met
It's
Elijah.
the Indian street food.
Yeah, exactly. It was probably in Tulum on the street food, honestly.
And that happens. Look at all those people that are in Tulum living happy lives, and they've probably got all the E. coli.
They probably got 500% of gold.
Yeah, who
You know?
knows? Who knows?
you
It
gotta look
reminds
at
me
where
of
you
this
grew
one
up.
time we were in Hong Kong, and we were staying at this hotel.
You're so
Eli-
blessed to have traveled so much. You guys
Elijah
are
and
so
I-
blessed. Yeah.
Elijah and I,
blessed.
we were in Hong Kong, and
Shandong.
we were staying at the Empire Hotel, which is supposed to be like a 4-star hotel. Little do we know, or I think we already know, but Hong Kong has a terrible mold problem, right? Like really bad, because there's a lot of humidity in the air,
Yeah.
and the buildings are very old, right?
100 years.
So
Literally.
we're staying at this hotel, and we sleep there for a night, and then we go out for the day, and then all of a sudden Elijah starts breaking out in hives,
Oh no.
right? And we're like,
My elbows and then behind my legs.
Oh
Yeah.
my god.
So like in my crevices.
Itchy?
Red bumps.
Red bumps.
I have never
Bed bugs
seen
or
someone get so reactive towards hives, right? Because hives are like, I'll get hives sometimes if I eat something like a shrimp, for example,
But
has
they-
a lot of histamine in it.
yeah,
I'll like get hives and my mouth will start itching, what have you.
that's an allergy.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's stay away
Yeah.
from shrimp.
Yeah, it just releases more. Some foods have more histamine than others. Regardless if you're allergic to them, your body will produce an allergic reaction in some capacity, whether
Right.
it's observable or not. But needless to say, Elijah starts breaking out in hives. And he freaks the fuck out.
Yeah, I would too.
I mean, I would too, right? And I have, right? But that's where I'm like, dude, when you have something that you don't know what it is, right? Which I think a lot of people suffering with depression, obviously there's the cognitive effect, but there's also something physiological more than likely,
Of
right? In
course.
some capacity,
Yeah.
right? Whether it's their diet or how much they're working out, how much sunlight they're getting, right? All of these are variables in your mental state.
Yeah.
But when you don't know what is the root cause in terms of your deficiency or your ailment, i.e. hives, what have you, you're like, okay, something is
Wrong.
infecting my body, right? There's a pathogen in or outside of my body, right? On my skin that's, I don't know what it is, and I don't know what it's going to cause, and I don't know what it's going to do. That in and of itself is going to ignite your your fight or flight system, right?
Yeah.
And
For
so like
sure.
holding space for that, which I feel like I tried to do throughout that time, but it was chaos when we were in Hong Kong. And Elijah went to a doctor. He's like, this is very common. You got to do this. You got to do that. And then, the dust settled. But I just barely had that doctor's
your dust
consult,
is
if you
still
will, for
settling.
something
Yeah.
exactly that lasted 3 years.
For sure. I think
So-
with the Hong Kong thing, it was external on my body. And then I was like, all of our stuff is in this hotel room, and are there bed bugs? And
Yeah.
do we need to move?
Imagine if it was inside of you, right? For 3 years.
Nonetheless, like, I was like, all right, let's get the
You know
D-Rubs.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So 100%.
You
I
guys
don't
are
want
better
to.
than me, though.
What?
You guys are better than me, though,
What do you
because
mean?
Well,
Like-
we were also in the middle of Hong Kong. So I was like, what the fuck do I do? Like, I go to a doctor. I mean, they speak a little bit of English in Hong Kong, depending on where you are. But
yeah, traveling with that would be
Yeah, there was a
too.
lot of variables and uncertainty, right? And the dust settled within a day or two, and Elijah was fine. But what I'm getting at is like, imagine that prolonged on an internal state, right?
Yeah.
And you're having all these symptoms, and it lasts 3 fucking years.
I get you.
So I try to paint that analogy so you can have some empathy for me, because I feel like sometimes
it's not that I don't have
there,
empathy.
there is a subtle dismissive, but ultimately he has always been there supporting me and putting up,
Yeah.
quite frankly, with like
Of
all the
course.
symptoms
You
of
guys
everything.
both do it for each other.
Yeah, and I have
It's a
immense
one-way street.
I have
I'm kidding.
I have immense gratitude for him, just like, because like I said, it's really affected my cognitive function, my ability to focus. Sometimes I feel like I'm so aloof, or the way I explain things don't make any sense.
being a few
right?
minutes late to a
Yeah,
meeting.
exactly. Always late to shit, like always, and it annoys me sometimes, right? But
Right.
I think that this is like bringing, like, obviously I have to take accountability for my own behavior ultimately, but then also there are things that are putting me at a disadvantage from the get-go.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like these are
Same
my
here.
predispositions. Sure, I'm like not a super timely person. My parents are Brazilian. I grew up in this like very like kind of lackadaisical,
yeah.
laid
Mhm.
back culture. But then also it's like this is like the cards are stacked against me too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but you got to play those cards
But
right.
Yeah.
despite that happening, Elijah still has been patient and like, giving me space,
He's a
and
very
sometimes he
patient
gets
man.
on my ass. But I mean, we're still here ultimately, so
Yeah.
I'm glad we made it this far.
I love you, brother, and I'm happy that you're finding your way to health.
Me
Genuinely,
too, man.
I do think that it is a reflection of our ability to be empathetic. Where I feel like I could relate more quicker to someone's position, like role playing. Like if someone has lost someone, I could be like, I totally get that. Ugh, that must be so hard. And that
That's like true like compassion.
compassion, maybe, right? But like there gets to be a point where I'm like, okay, like let's be in the motion, let's do it, but like let's move, like let's create an action plan and let's go. And I'm not the friend that goes, hey, I got back with my boyfriend. Hey, I didn't. We're broken up. Hey, I got back with my. I'm like, you're repeating the same pattern. I don't have the space to be able to continue to see you make the same mistake.
Right.
And I think that that's more. I don't know if that's compassion or just
Well, there's a difference between like sympathy and empathy, obviously.
yeah.
And,
Would you
like,
say sympathy?
I would say you, with the like somebody lost something or whatever, I would say that's the empathy. And then like you eventually like being like, okay, this is like too much. It becomes sympathy because you stop engaging in the trying to get on that level.
right.
So it's sympathy, like, yes, I understand you, but like it's over and over again, right? And you're like, ugh, it's exhausting for me as well. But I think you guys both support each other in those ways. And sometimes it's like frustrating because one's going for one, maybe one's on one good streak,
Yeah.
the other one's struggling.
Yeah.
But I think Danny's better at the sympathy piece. Like Danny
Oh,
could
yes.
sit in the feeling for a prolonged period of time because he's gone through this or he's gone through other instances where like I have like a short fuse where I'm like, I'm there, I totally got you.
And
But then if someone is in that same state, Danny could just be like, well, it's all right.
well, there's a good example of this too. A couple months ago, and we had that specific account, and we were on that call, and we were just all sitting there like blank faced through that meeting, and I got off and hysterically crying. Danny called me and was like, that was rough. Like that really meant a lot to me. I don't know if you know that, but that And you were like, crawling, like out traveling and like panicking, like how to save this. And like, I needed that in that moment. And he was really there when you were trying to like, type
I was
A.
like solution orientated.
Right. And he was like trying to go through it. And you guys you do both transport like in those different ways. Just there's different approaches to both that you guys have, which are both really great qualities. But in that moment, I really needed that like empathy of like understanding, listening. Like you heard me like ugly cry on that phone call. You know what I mean? I was like, and I needed that, like we needed
and
that
I'm like,
moment.
Get your shit together, woman.
Yeah, it was like a
we
slap.
Gotta go.
Right, you know what I mean? And that's okay. Both of those are good things because we need a healthy mix of both of those in any space. It's just, and you guys are better than me than this, because if I found out or if I was struggling with something like you were struggling, I'd put it off because I'm too scared to figure out what the fuck's wrong with me. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
and part of me did that
doctor.
too, like I should have gone I had this test sitting in my closet for like a year, I should have done it sooner. But I did just I was like, fuck it. Like, I think this is just what I have to accept for my reality. But I'm so glad I found out what it is.
It's like a sense of relief that now.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I want to like show up more in that capacity on a more consistent basis too. And I'm excited to like really step into a leader because I feel like I've been kind of,
You guys got a lot on your plates too.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like I've been spread thin between this and like my own personal life, and I want to like show up better for myself and for the team, So I'm excited to get my health in check and my energy levels up and really like get to the next level,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, it's important to recognize these things and then figure out what do I need to do to get this moving and grooving. And I think you're banging a left in a corner.
Yeah, exactly. I'm drifting right now.
We both are.
Yeah.
Because I'm like on this health journey, fit journey, like getting better.
And you're kicking ass at that too.
Yeah.
Trying.
And it's interesting to see how like I feel like nurture really does play a role into these things. Nature as well, but a little bit of nurture on like what are the narratives that I told myself previously or that were told to me? Why are these things so important to me? What do I value?
Yeah.
Why do I value it?
Right. And if you notice that your narrative is, you don't recognize it and you're like, whoa, like, where is this coming from? Or like, this isn't like me, like do your best to be still and like get to the bottom of it, and address like how you can ultimately shift your narrative. Because to Elijah's point, that is such a big part of this, right?
Yeah, it is.
Like what you tell yourself is ultimately what's going to compose your
it's
life.
Like manifestation.
Yeah.
You have the ability to tell a narrative. And I think that's where maybe I could get better, where it's like you're nurturing yourself. So it's like, what are you feeding yourself?
Yeah.
And understanding where someone's at, but then also like, how do you get to that next point or like recreate it?
Self-soothing and...
Yeah. Because there's something to be said about whatever DNA you have, whatever experiences that you have, you also get to create your reality.
Exactly.
In a sense.
Yeah.
And it's usually harder said than done, or easier said than done.
Yes, it always is.
But
yeah. Your thoughts create your beliefs create your reality.
Where your focus goes, energy will flow.
Yeah. So get your focus locked in and take a deep breath. Everything's going to be okay. Even if you have E. coli for 3 years and you don't find out about it, you're going to be fine.
Turn your genes off and on.
Turn them on.
At least it's not like... I just keep thinking like so many worse things that you could have, like herpes, AIDS. You know what I mean? Like you could have so many.
I think
E.
E. coli is probably worse than herpes. I'm gonna be honest with you. So many people have HPV. That's like the most common thing.
But HPV in men is not that big of a deal. With women, it can cause cervical cancer.
You could have gonorrhea.
Yeah.
Gonorrhea.
I'm glad I don't have anything like that for sure.
You could have your testes just.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I knew one guy growing up.
One testy Tom.
He literally had to get his testicle removed. He had cancer in one of his testicles, so he's got one ball.
Singular testicle.
He actually made a kid, so good.
Oh,
yeah,
ball
he
of
did have
king.
babies,
Yeah, you can still have kids with one testicle.
I know. I just think it's less power.
Yeah.
The rifle is a little broken.
Yeah.
Double barreled shotgun.
We called him One Ball Bob.
See, that's a name. Single ball Bob rolling in. Not a pair. Still here.
Shout out to Bob.
Shout out to Bob.
All right, guys. Well, this has been a crazy podcast.
Yeah, this kind of took a turn for the worse.
It's okay. I mean, we
the
did
better,
really...
I think. I think we circled back, right?
Yeah, nature nurture nurture.
Yeah,
nurture
we had
yourself.
these things about the warrior gene.
MAOA.
Mao.
The Mao gene.
nicknamed the warrior gene, has been linked to increased aggression, but only when combined with childhood trauma.
Makes sense.
I have some of that.
Yeah.
Me too.
Turn on the warrior gene. Turn on the genes that make you feel good about yourself.
I do have to say what I've noticed, just being the oldest out of all my siblings.
Yeah.
Like, very much older. And my parents splitting and then having kids, right?
Yeah.
My mom's children, brothers and sister, grew up in unstable, had a lot of other issues, depression, teen pregnancy, like eating disorder. My dad's kids, I grew up with a, like nuclear family setting, no issues. One has my 19-year-old brother just bought a house. You know what I mean? Like there's no issues there. You know what I mean? Like maybe, of course, they may have bad days, but there's not significant, like not a heroin addict. You know what I mean? Like they're not these big, huge factors or like life-changing deals. Whereas my other side, where there was instability, is like you can see it.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it depends.
It does depend.
Some people have like really unstable.
It does, absolutely. But what I've noticed and like are we still on?
Yeah.
Oh, what I've just noticed specifically is because they grew up in a stable environment without the mental health component of my mom or like the crack addicted dad or all of that craziness. My dad's side, who like college educated, go to work 9 to 5. My stepmom, who was like a teacher, still a Catholic teacher, they had like a foundation, a solid foundation to grow upon and are successful, you know? And that's just what I've noticed in my experiences.
See, I feel like the warrior gene a little bit. I had like the unstable environment.
Yeah.
But
Same.
It turned to aggression.
Yeah.
But like fueled aggression.
Fueled aggression to myself was mine.
Mine was like
external.
Go forward.
Yeah. Mine was internal.
Yeah, internal turned out external.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see like how our siblings that had a very similar, obviously, upbringing in a lot of capacities. Obviously, there's differences between like being the youngest and the oldest, what have you, but like same parents, same house, what have you. They can still be so different. Mm-hmm. And then there are still so many similarities. Like there's the gym twins, which is this famous story.
Tell me about the gym twins.
So these twins were separated at birth, right? Mm-hmm. And then decades later, okay, they reconnected, and turns out they drove the same car.
Wow.
They had the same job.
Wow.
And they named their sons the same name.
Jim.
But then is it like they're both driving Hondas and they're both accountants? Like
it's like, well, no shit. That's like 30% of it now. I think I don't know. I think it's pretty crazy, honestly.
It is pretty wild.
Were they were identical twins?
Or fraternals?
That's a good question. I don't know.
You're not really that familiar with the gyms?
It looks like they were identical twins raised apart. So if they were identical, then they had the same genetic makeup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100% of their DNA. Wow.
Wow.
That's actually pretty crazy.
Yeah.
It's similar. 100% of their DNA.
Yeah.
That's crazy. The twins kind of are crazy. Or like the
I know.
Twin telepathy.
Like the seed splits into two and it's the exact same one.
Have you ever seen the twins that are like still joined?
Oh my God, the conjoined twins.
They were that TLC show.
Oh my God, I love that show.
So there was
Abby.
I don't know if it was them. It was like the famous sisters or whatever. Okay, they're like conjoined twins, right? So they're like attached at the hip, literally, and or the shoulder. I can't remember which one, but anyways, they went to college, right? And they had to pay 2 separate college tuitions.
That is
fucked up.
Do you want to hear the more fucked up part? When they graduated college and then they went back to work, they only got paid 1 salary.
That's really screwed. That's really wrong.
We got to try to hire them. That's a 2-for-1er.
Yeah, that is a 2-for-1er. Oh, they only have 2 hands though, right?
But they got 2 brains.
They've got 2 brains. That's true. That's true.
So maybe like 1.5.
But I think that like the coherence between them must be difficult, right? Like imagine if they have a disagreement and they're like,
and they got to put a curve
hey,
behind them.
Press the enter button on the keyboard. And they're like, no, I don't want to send this email. And it's like, you know what I mean? It can get a little tricky.
Interesting.
And then there's a show on TLC about a conjoined twin.
Yeah.
Where they're like, literally.
I think they had a wedding special.
Yeah, they did. Like, and then, but the one isn't dating the man. The other one is. She's
How
not.
is that possible?
They literally they're not in a relationship together. Like she's just like the third wheel essentially.
Get out of here.
I swear.
Did she not find love too?
No. It's just because it's just it's very bizarre. She's happy. She claims she's happy, but at the same time, like it's very weird. It's very strange.
See, if I had a conjoined twin, I'd be like, you're getting both of us, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about the other TLC show where they're identical twins that date the same man?
Wow.
Yeah, and they're not together.
Oh, like
they're
polygamous?
Is it in Utah?
Separate. I don't know where they live.
Because my sister has twins and they're so different from each other, but they're fraternal. But like just their energy, their approach to life.
Yeah.
It's just fascinating to see that.
Yeah.
It's like two different
So you
human
have the
beings.
twin gene in your family.
Yeah.
Wow. You're gonna get twins. I know you're gonna get twins.
Really?
Yeah.
Imagine just like two little redheads running around.
Tasmanian devils.
Oh my god.
Little Jacks
hmm
blowing up the apartments.
I could not. That's so exciting. I cannot wait for that day.
You're going to be an
gonna make
auntie,
kids.
Kyla.
I know.
Auntie Kai Kai.
I know. Well, I already am technically.
Yeah.
And
Well,
those
you're a new
sisters-
mother.
Yeah, I am a new mother.
Did that gene recently turned on in your life?
Yes, it did. And
Congratulations
I never had
on your
any.
birth.
Thank you so much, my little fur baby. I was very, very, and I've never had that like love, like you know what I mean, like towards something.
Mm-hmm.
Like every time I just look
You
at
never
her,
had
I'm
an
like-
animal before?
I've had an animal in the past. Like I had a dog growing up, but like
Yeah.
she was like my play dog. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
grew up. It wasn't like when I was an adult. you
Sure.
know? She had passed like right when I turned 18. And then my grandparents got a dog when I went away to college, like that replaced me in the house.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I got really close with her, but then I was in and out of my addiction. So like it was
Yeah.
not a connection. And then my last, not this current relationship, but the last one, we had gotten a dog together and then he ended up taking the dog. So I got, attached basically.
Yeah.
Like it attached from me. So this time was like on my own singular dog.
You're a baby.
And now just I'm like, mama. Yeah, it's like all day I'm like talking to her. I'm like, what do you want? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Checking on her.
Aw,
I know. I love her to death.
that's so cute.
We love a recently turned on mom gene.
I know. She's spoiled rotten too.
I don't know if motherhood's a gene, but
It can be some.
I think like sometimes they say like I have friends that are like I'm looking for a baby now.
Yeah.
Like there's like
And
a
then-
witching
sure.
hour.
Yeah,
There's like
maybe
certain
that.
ages for women too, where
But I
they're
don't think
like
that's genes.
sometimes it comes
You
early.
just turned 30,
Yeah,
and
I
so
just
you're
turned
like,
30.
gotta be a mama.
Yeah, and it sometimes like I never wanted kids when I was younger.
Hmm.
I was like anti-kids, like
Mm.
And now
get those
Anti-kids.
abortions. You know what I mean?
Whoa.
It's just a joke. It's just a joke. You know, the
hey,
state of our
hey,
nation.
watch out.
You're
Yeah,
like rallying.
whoa,
You're
it's
like,
just a
get
joke.
them. It's not even like, pro-choice. It's like actually abort the children.
Yeah, just get them. But I was really I was just anti-kids. Like if anything, I was going to adopt just to give another child a better
Yeah.
life. Because I didn't want a kid to go through what I went through
Right.
and experience the whole thing. But now I think it's just, I think now that I'm older and I have an
You could have a
appreciation for
baby.
life. Yeah.
Oh,
Just
baby.
probably not till like another 5 years or so.
We'll see.
We'll see. That'd be a lot for me right now.
So whether it's genes, whether it's nature
Or nurture.
or nurture,
which
get your
is-
shit together. Danny,
Or call us and we'll help you get your shit together.
you know us, helping you break those cycles.
Mm-hmm.
So if you need support, give us a call. Cycle Health, we're here to help you find innovative treatments and accessible care.
Like TMS, Spravato, ketamine infusions, medication management.
Psychotherapy.
Whatever's going to help you feel better, ultimately. And that will be up to the
Folic
discretion of the medical doctor.
Yeah, we're not medical professionals. We're just here for the vibes.
Yeah. We're here for the vibe, someone to talk to and someone to find some resources. And we'll point you in the right direction.
We'll bring the vibes. Thanks for hanging.